Hello friends, welcome to the Salem Mason Happy Home YouTube channel and PIAC Minnesota Paranormal. I'm going to do a quick episode that's going to go on to both of our YouTube channels because it spans everyday life into the paranormal. So really quick episode. I wanted to tell you about something that I think is just absolutely life and death imperative for everybody to do, and that is to sit down, especially with your kids, if you have kids that can tolerate it, and go onto Netflix and watch a limited docuseries. It's called Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. Now, initially, the primary subject of this docuseries is the accidental drowning death of Elisa Lam, but it also dives into the extremes of mental illness and how not monitoring people who suffer from mental illness and take medications, how life and death it is, that they be supervised and monitored and that there's a support system in place. It also spans the infamous serial killers that lived at that hotel, the homelessness problem, and the egregious suicides and drug habits and all of the horrible things about society that are uncomfortable to discuss and nobody wants to talk about. And it's really important that we have these discussions and that we see the reality of homelessness and drug use and suicide. And there were some sensational stories and infamous people that also stayed at the Cecil Hotel through the years, but primarily Lisa Lam was a horrible death. But it talks about the paranormal and supernatural coincidences that occurred with regard to her death in particular. One of them was that there was an outbreak of tuberculosis there after she died, and that one of the tuberculosis tests are called the Lam Elisa. There was an issue with a bookstore that she had patronized while she was in Los Angeles, and they were talking about how the zip code matched the town that she lived in. Well, you know, the headquarters for that bookstore could actually be in the town that she lives in, and maybe they have those bookstores in her community in Canada. So maybe she recognized that bookstore as a store in her community, and that's why she went in there. So there's a lot of ways to explain, those weird paranormal coincidences. But there's a lot of spiritual and karmic energy, a lot of paranormal loops, and a lot of hauntings and other kinds of crazy things that are going on there. But I wanted to touch on the birth and death of a conspiracy theory, and that is the underlying topic of this docuseries. And in light of recent events that have occurred at our White House, the insurrection, which involves conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theories that led to that incredible insurrection and the violence, it's appalling. It's beyond words what happened, and we can never let that happen again. But as the docuseries progresses and they look at what happened to her and they realize that it was ultimately an accidental drowning, there were still conspiracy theorists out there who would not let go of the conspiracy, and others that came to a rational place of thought and realized, okay, presented with the facts, I see that I was wrong. And I think that it's extremely important because in this case, the conspiracy theories went as far as not just obliterating and destroying the life of an innocent man, but he actually was the victim of death threats because these conspiracy theorists they wouldn't let go of the fact that they just picked this guy out of a crowd and that he had to be the killer because he was odd and different. And one of the things that made him odd and different was that he acknowledged that he has a shade side or a shadow side. Carl Jung based his career, and Nietzsche as well, on exploring how healthy it is to recognize that we have a light side and a dark side, understanding that it is unhealthy to live a toxic positivity lifestyle, that we need to examine and explore and acknowledge our dark side and bring it to the surface, use it constructively, but embrace it as just part of our soul of who we are. And he expressed that in his art. And he wasn't even at the hotel. In fact, he wasn't even in the country at the time that Elisa Lam went missing. And ultimately, with indisputable facts, I mean, like videos of him being somewhere else in another country, this conspiracy theorists refused to let go, and some of them threatened to kill him. And that's how far extremists go. And that's what happened with the insurrection. Extremists that weren't letting go, that weren't realizing the facts or accepting the facts as they were, and they were going to make sure that they had their way no matter what. And they were going to kill people. Their intent was to kill people, to hang Mike Pence, to shoot Nancy Pelosi. And I'm the first one to say I can't stand the sight of Nancy Pelosi. Anyone that knows me knows that I just can't take it. But I would never, ever consider killing anybody. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't march into my White House. It's our White House. I don't appreciate them destroying that history, destroying our sacred place. I wouldn't go in there and threaten to kill anybody. You know, I might shout obscenities, but I certainly wouldn't kill anybody. I wouldn't go in there with that intent, and that's just, it's hideous. And, you know, and I've poked fun. I have poked fun at Nancy. I know I have. Because she is kind of absurd, and she kind of, she kind of sticks her foot in it quite a bit. But that's still no excuse for an insurrection. That's still no excuse to threaten to kill people. That's no excuse to erect a gallows in front of the White House. And it was all based on conspiracy theories. And I think now we need to step back and look at the birth and death of a conspiracy theory. And this is a good place to start this episode. Crime Scene, it's a limited docuseries on Netflix, and it's called Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. And they're going to go into all of the other social and economic and political issues that revolve around or involve that hotel, and how the conspiracy theories around that hotel and around Elisa Lam's disappearance and ultimate accidental drowning death began, and how they evolved, and the mentality and the attitude of the people that propagated this conspiracy theory. I really think that we need to learn to look at all sides of an issue, that we need to all step back and not gut react immediately to our opinions and our feelings. And I'm the first one to say I do. I mean, I got a big mouth and I use it. It's my worst enemy and my best friend. But the paranormal that occurs there's a lot of karmic activity, a lot of hauntings going on. The hotel's very old. There's a lot of people that have died there, like almost daily people were dying there. And their psychic residue is all over the place. It's probably someplace that I would love to go to investigate if I wasn't terrified to go to Los Angeles. I would love to go there and investigate. And maybe someday we would. But in the meantime, give it a listen, and you'll get a really, really nice, sugary taste of the paranormal and supernatural that has grown and evolved with the Cecil Hotel's history. But you're also going to understand a little bit about the birth and death of a conspiracy theory and how these things evolve and how dangerous and deadly they get. This innocent man who had been accused and is still being threatened to this day had to quit being an artist like he had been. His whole life was turned upside down. He even considered suicide at one time because these conspiracy theories abounded, and the people behind the conspiracy theories drove him to that point. And it'll give you a really good breakdown and understanding of the mentality of the conspiracy theorists that ultimately led to the insurrection on Capitol Hill on January 6th. So there's so much information and so much parallel. So many things that we can learn from this one docuseries. So I highly recommend it. And until next time, just be good at what you're good at and PIAC Minnesota Paranormal, may you be filled with the light and love of the universe and always, always do good.